Kunja Bihari Kapichana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prashana Ranjana Chamuna Tiravanachari Chamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Radha, Radha Nata Radha, Radha Nata Radhe. Jai Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jai Giri Govardhan. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jaya Om Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Privaracharya Asata Sala Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Jaya Om Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Privaracharya Asata Sala Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai. Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Tadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhescha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Indradumna Swamiti Namini. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatharya Satvani. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today is being Ekadasi. We'll be reading from Lilamrta, Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta. So we'll start from where we had left off, and the page is 192. This is the third volume. Srila Prabhupada visited the wealthy Delhi industrialist, Mr. Seth Dalmia, to discuss plans for printing some of his books in India. Mr. Dalmia received him well, but gave only vague promises to help. Prabhupada also met with his Hitsaran Sharma, Mr. Dalmia's secretary, who worked closely with Hanuman Prasad Padar of the popular religious publishing company, Gita Press. Srila Prabhupada was already acquainted with all three gentlemen, since they had all donated towards the first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada wanted Gita Press to publish his Gita Upanishad and Srimad Bhagavatam. Hitsaran Sharma showed him an illustrated Gita in Hindi poetry that he had recently published. But my Gita and my Bhagavatam, said Srila Prabhupada, appearing disgusted, is the description of God. It is the description of Krishna. Mr. Sharma said he couldn't see how Gita Press could print Prabhupada's voluminous writings. Nevertheless, Prabhupada still considered privately printing Gita Upanishad with Mr. Sharma as his agent. So we see here that Srila Prabhupada wanted to publish his Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita basically, and Srimad Bhagavatam. But here the publisher showed Srila Prabhupada some publishing that he had done for some impersonalists, Mayavad philosophers, and Prabhupada was disgusted. He didn't like it, and therefore he proclaimed that he should publish his Gita and his Srimad Bhagavatam, because these are direct descriptions of God, and God we know is a person, Krishna, and Prabhupada, this is what he wanted to propagate. He wanted to be Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. So Prabhupada wanted to kick out all this impersonalism and establish Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead. He's a person, right? He's not some void. So this is what Prabhupada wanted. Let's continue. On October 11th, Prabhupada wrote to Brahmananda, We must have our books printed. We have wasted time in the matter of editing and finding out a suitable publisher. When I was alone, there was 3 volumes published, but during the last 2 years I could not publish a single volume more. It is a great defeat. If I have 1 or 2 sincere souls like you, and if we can make more publications, then our mission will be a great success. I am prepared to sit down underneath a tree with a sincere soul. In such activity, I shall be freed of all diseases. Devotees from America were regularly writing Swamiji, anxious to see him again in good health, but he didn't want to leave India. He explained, until he personally saw that the printing of the Gita Upanishad was underway. Printing Gita Upanishad and obtaining approval for permanent residency in the US were the 2 short-term goals he wished to achieve before returning. But he then thought often of his return to America. As you are feeling separation, similarly, I am anxious to return as soon as possible. I think I'm fit to go back to your country at present. And as scheduled previously, I'm sure by the end of October, I must be fit to return. But before this, there are many things to be done. I'm not yet assured of the permanent visa. The best thing will be that from each center an invitation should be sent that my presence is urgently required. Presently, I am very much anxious to begin printing here, if Macmillan Company does not take up the work. Please therefore let me know Yes or no from Macmillan. If he is not serious, then immediately send the manuscript, finished or not, to the following address: Pandit Hitsaran Sharma Company, Dalmia Enterprises, Scindia House, New Delhi. After dispatching, let me know, and I shall do the needful. So we see how Srila Prabhupada really wanted these books to be printed, and more for his disciples to read and understand, try to understand his teachings. We see that later on they also distributed, but it was more for his disciples. And even when he gave class in India, he spoke in English, although majority of the people, understood Hindi, but he spoke in English more for his disciples to understand. Right? Indian friends visited Srila Prabhupada's room, listening eagerly as he told them about America. The millions of cars and the superhighways and thousands of young people rejecting their father's wealth. But Prabhupada's Prabhupada's visitors weren't fully able to understand his visit to America. Not that they were too simple to understand, and not just that they had never traveled in the West. Srila Prabhupada's experience in America consisted of intimate spiritual relationships with his disciples. How could an outsider understand the dynamics of his temples and his disciples in the West? How could anyone except Prabhupada and his disciples understanding these teachings? My mind is always with you. Practically, your country is my home now. India is a foreign country to me. The reason is that my spiritual master is there, and my material relationships in India. The reason is that my spiritual master is there, and my material relationships in India. Therefore, factually, where my spiritual master exists, there is my home. So we know that Prabhupada took his spiritual master's instructions and went to the West, and that is why he says his spiritual master is there in the West, because that's where his instruction is, right? Where was I? Srila Prabhupada's vision of a worldwide society of devotees preaching in temples and publishing books, a vision he had even before he had gone to America, was now becoming manifest. But it was dependent on him. In his absence, his disciples were sustained only by carrying out his orders and receiving his letters. When Dayananda and Nandarani had gone from San Francisco temple to start a temple in Los Angeles, it had been Swamiji's instructions that had sustained and guided them. Wherever there was a new branch of our Society for Krishna Consciousness, I become very, very happy, and my blessings in heart and soul are with you. On receipt of Swamiji's letter, they knew they had done the right thing. No matter that husband and wife sometimes quarrel and that there wasn't enough money, the main thing was that Swamiji was pleased. From Boston, Satswarup wrote that he and the other devotees they were moving from an apartment to a rented storefront near Boston University. The first time Satswarup entered the new storefront, he found on the floor an aerogram from Swamiji dated October 6 from Delhi. So we see here how the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, just by Prabhupada's instruction, they went out and they opened centers, in foreign places, and even without money, they, tried to open centers. So this is a great accomplishment for Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada was very, very happy by this. I I understand that you have secured a very nice place in Boston, and there is very good possibility of publishing our movement, of pushing our movement amongst the student community. Our movement is certainly very much appealing to the younger section of your society, of your country, and if we are successful in the matter of attracting the student community in your country, certainly this movement will scatter all over the world and fulfill the foretelling of Lord Chaitanya that in every town and village of the world the Lord will be famous for his glorious Sankirtan movement. Please try for this with your heart and soul, and your life will be a successful mission. The letter was as good as Swamiji coming personally to open the storefront and begin the preaching. It gave Satswarup full direction and inspiration, and it was personal. In that same letter, Prabhupada had written, "I'm always aspiring after returning to your country and overload you with typewriting tasks. I hope we shall very soon meet again and help each other in the matter of discharging Krishna conscious engagements. I am now 90% all right, and I think I can return safely. This typewriting work is done by me. For 2 days I am alone and doing everything myself as experiment. This proves that I am well now, or now well. Please offer my blessings to all boys and girls there." In New Mexico, Subal was trying to arrange public speaking engagements for Srila Prabhupada's return, and Prabhupada was encouraging him. If you think I can be on television by the first week in December, then you can arrange for it, because I must be in your country by the middle of November. Srila Prabhupada wrote to Janardana in Montreal, answering his philosophical doubts and encouraging him to be patient with his spiritually reluctant wife. And to Ryan Rama, who was editing Back to Godhead magazine in New York, he gave another kind of thoughtful assurance. "I am very happy that since its BTG is entrusted to you, the things are improving. This means that Krishna is giving you more and more facilities. Krishna is such a nice boss that he gives more facilities and improvements to the sincere servant." On October 9, the day Prabhupada started for Calcutta, he left behind a different kind of letter for Krishna Pandit. Prabhupada had been negotiating with Sri Krishna Pandit to purchase the Chippiwada temple for ISKCON, or at least to rent a single room through a formal contract. Prabhupada wanted the room in Delhi headquarters for printing his books. On the day of his departure, however, Sri Krishna Pandit was unavailable, and Prabhupada left him a short handwritten note that reads, "If you are not settling anything with the room, then I may not come back to Delhi anymore. I will go to USA directly from Calcutta via the Pacific route, for which Sri Dalmia said has already promised for the ticket." So that ends the chapter of chapter 6. We're going into a new chapter now, chapter 7. India Revisited, Part 2. Prabhupada's train, the Kalka Mail, pulled into Delhi station. Prabhupada and his 2 disciples had tickets with reserved seats but no car number. So while Prabhupada waited with the baggage, Achyuta and Ramanuja ran from one end of the train to the other looking for their car. After they had found their seat and boarded, Achyuta untied Prabhupada's bedding and spread it open on the upper tier. Prabhupada climbed a little ladder, sat comfortably on his cotton-stuffed quilt, and opened his Sanskrit Srimad Bhagavatam. After Achyutananda and Ramanuja took their seats, it would take around 24 hours to reach Calcutta. Near the end of the journey, a group of educated Bengali gentlemen struck up a philosophical conversation with the Swami. "We do not worship any form," one said. Shri Radharadhanath ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanande. Oh yeah. Near the end of the journey, a group of educated Bengali gentlemen struck up a philosophical conversation with the Swami. "We do not worship any form," said one, speaking fluent English in a loud, deep voice. "We have a marble Omkara that we worship, and we sit and pray to that." "That is also a form," said Srila Prabhupada. He was reluctant to attack their philosophical position directly. "We practice karma yoga," the gentleman went on, not heeding Prabhupada's previous point. "Because in karma yoga, you can stay within your position. But karma yoga is not full surrender of the soul," said Srila Prabhupada. "One must come to the stage of bhakti." "Oh no," the man protested. "Emotionalism is very harmful. Karma yoga." Srila Prabhupada exploded. "Karma yoga is for the fools." "Silence." Another man, not with the Bengalis but seated beside them, spoke up. "Obviously, Swamiji is a learned scholar," he said. "You shouldn't argue like that." The Bengali that Prabhupada had shouted at got up and moved to another seat. Later he came back. "Are you insulted?" Prabhupada asked him. "No, no, no," he replied, "but I have never heard anyone say that about the teachings of the Gita." So you see how strong Srila Prabhupada is about this Mayavad philosophy, that God has no form, right? And so they didn't worship any form of the Lord. They just worshiped the Omkar, And then Prabhupada said, well, the Omkar is also a form. And we see in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "I am the syllable Om," right? And so Prabhupada got, very upset, and he called them fools. And he said, "Karma yoga is for the fools," right? So the Bengalis then talked with Achyutananda, lighting their cigarettes and smoking freely before him, although they had not dared to do so before Prabhupada. It wasn't proper to smoke in front of a sadhu. All devotees are sadhus, right? But obviously they respected Prabhupada because he was an elderly man and he was in saffron as a sannyasi. So they knew some etiquette. Bengalis, Achyutananda told them, cited one of Prabhupada's examples. We're very sorry that East Pakistan had been cut off from the rest of Bengal. But Krishna consciousness could elevate people to international, universal consciousness. Then there wouldn't be any such division. The Bengalis appreciated Achyutananda's remark, though they continued to blow smoke in his face as the train rattled over the last miles to Calcutta. You know how painful that is for a devotee? Someone blowing smoke into your face. Right, but Prabhupada, he was teaching by example also, and he said we should just tolerate, okay? Prabhupada was greeted at Calcutta's Howrah station by relatives, mostly from his sister's family, and by devotees of the Goswami Math. About 50 people were on hand. They offered Prabhupada flower garlands, sandalwood paste, and then escorted him and his disciples into a car. Achyutananda and Ramanuja noticed that Swamiji's sister was shorter and more rotund than Prabhupada, meaning that she was shorter and more fatter, stumpier than Prabhupada. Her facial features were strikingly similar. Her name was Bhavatarini, but Prabhupada told him to call her Pishima, aunt. So there's many stories of Pishima trying to serve Srila Prabhupada and cooking for him like this with the help of Prabhupada's disciples. So there's many examples like this given by Srila Prabhupada's disciples in various books. Those incidents are encountered in those books. As Prabhupada rode through the streets, he saw many images of Goddess Kali, 10-armed, riding a lion. Calcutta was observing the biggest religious celebration in Bengal, Kali Puja, a month of festivals in honor of the Goddess Kali. Throughout the city, brass bands and radio music blared, and there were decorative lights, stages, and tents. When Srila Prabhupada arrived at Pishima's house in South Calcutta, his relatives seated him and performed an artic ceremony in his honor, reverentially offering him the traditional items: incense, a flaming lamp, flowers. They had bathed his feet. He sat smiling within the crowded room of relatives who were proud of his having journeyed to America on behalf of Lord Krishna. As Prabhupada's family sang Hare Krishna Kirtan, from outside the room the ladies of the house began singing a high, shrill whooping sound. Achyutananda and Ramanuja were startled. So what they were doing, they were ululating, right, as we do in Kirtan sometimes. Bengalis normally do this. When you go to Mayapur, you see the Bengalis. They ululate a lot. So, right, soon after the festival, Prabhupada and his disciples retired. Was I there? Okay, sorry. Pishima had prepared a large feast, much of it cooked in mustard seed oil, for the homecoming celebration, and Prabhupada satisfied her by honoring the prasadam, even though he wasn't feeling well and was tired from the train ride. Soon after the festivities, Prabhupada and his disciples retired. Again his health wavered, this time because of his sister's heavy cooking, and he felt a strain on his heart. He sent for an Ayurvedic doctor who taught Achyutananda how to do a very gentle massage to help circulation and restricted Prabhupada from sweets. So this was Prabhupada's diet, light massage and no sweets. Right? As Prabhupada recovered, he began regularly lecturing in his room during the evenings. Although he spoke in English for his disciples, the room would soon fill to capacity with relatives and friends. There were generally disturbances from outside due to the noises of Kali Puja. Nearby Pishima's house was a large tent, a center for evening street parties, which included a sweet counter, fireworks, and an excessively loud public address system that incongruously blared Julie Andrews singing song from the sound of music. One evening, as Srila Prabhupada spoke, "My only qualification is that I have unflinching faith in my spiritual master." A large firecracker exploded outside the door. The audience smiled tolerantly. "Yes," Prabhupada said, taking the explosion as confirming of his words, "it is glorious." One night, Prabhupada explained that according to Bhagavad Gita, demigod worshippers are less intelligent. People worship Kali for material rewards, he said. But since all material things are temporary, such worship is inferior to the worship of Krishna. Kali is not able to grant the worshipper liberation from birth and death. Which is better? Which is better, Achyutananda asks, the worship of Christians and Jews? Worship of the Christians and Jews, which is mostly impersonal, or the worship of non-absolute by the worshippers of Kali. Worshippers of Kali is better, Prabhupada said, because the worshippers are in the Vedic system. They are more likely to bow down to Radha Krishna and chant Hare Krishna than a Christian or Jew. There is a chance that they will become Krishna's devotees in the future if they lose their material attachments. So devotees, we know that coming from demigod worship, that most of us have been worshipping demigods prior to coming to Krishna consciousness. And we see that, the demigods actually facilitated us. Because basically pious people worship the demigods because it's in relation to the Vedic understanding. And these demigods actually are servants of Krishna. And they are here, in this material world to facilitate this material world, right? To run certain departments of this material world. So, therefore, Srila Prabhupada said that those who are worshipping Kali are much more inclined to come to Krishna consciousness than worshippers of the impersonal aspect of God. So, like we also understand that, the different demigods that we worshipped help us to go further to come to Krishna consciousness. So similarly, Prabhupada is stating here that the worshippers of Kali have a better chance of becoming devotees, because they're already in the system, right? So this is the yoga ladder, from one step to the other. So as you go higher, and you come to Krishna. So they are on the yoga ladder, one of the rungs of the yoga ladder. And it just takes a pure devotee or a devotee of Krishna, Vaishnava, to go and introduce Krishna consciousness to them. And, they're like dry grass. They will just take it up like that. Most of them, but some of them, but most of them are more into this Kali rituals and all of that. And they are, immersed in it. So it's a bit difficult in that way. Prabhupada regularly visited his god brothers and their disciples to join him in America. Sometimes he seemed to do it just to get them at least to think more of preaching. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had once chided the Gaudiya Math ashram was no more than a joint mess. The members going out each day and collecting enough alms so that they could eat together, but with no dynamic vision of preaching. So Prabhupada's frequent invitation, "You should go to America, come back with me," would stir them, even if they couldn't actually come. On visiting the ashram of Bhakti Saranga Goswami, Prabhupada saw that the audience consisted almost entirely of old widows, but he spoke as usual. One day, Prabhupada's godbrother, Haridas Swami, came by. He was heavy-set and loud, and he spoke very rapidly. "Very happy to see you coming here from America. This is wonderful. Krishna is the Sanam Bonam and the cause of all causes. I want you to come to my temple." When Haridas Maharaj went into a separate room, Prabhupada turned to Achyutananda. "He wants us to go to his temple, but to go there, I will have to go into a rickshaw, and then onto a tram car, and then onto a train, and then another rickshaw." Aware of Prabhupada's weak condition, Achyutananda began shaking his head negatively. When Haridas Maharaj returned, Achyutananda said that Swamiji couldn't come to the math with you. Haridas Maharaj said angrily, "You are a brahmachari. You should risk your life." Achyutananda replied, "I will risk my life, but I can't risk my spiritual master's life." Haridas Maharaj left insulted. "Don't worry," Prabhupada said. He is just very talkative. Prabhupada paid a visit to B.P. Keshav Maharaj, the god brother who had awarded him sannyas order in 1959. So who awarded Prabhupada sannyas? B.P. Keshav Maharaj in 1959. Prabhupada sat on the floor and spoke in Bengali with his god brother, who was very old and apparently on his deathbed. Prabhupada had Achyutananda sing for Keshav Maharaj. Keshav Maharaj requested Prabhupada to visit his ashram, Devananda Math in Navadvip. Srila Prabhupada had wanted to return to the US as a permanent resident, but his students in America hadn't been able to get the necessary clearance from the US Immigration Department. The devotees in Boston had gotten in touch with a few Harvard Indology professors, but had obtained no signed statement about Prabhupada's importance. All the ISKCON centers had written formal letters inviting A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami and had presented copies to the U.S. Immigration Office. But unless the devotees could produce something more impressive, like a government recommendation or a university offer for him to join their faculty, Prabhupada could not become a U.S. resident. On October 13th, Prabhupada wrote to his disciples in Montreal, "I am very anxious to go to Montreal, therefore you must try your best to get my immigration visa on the basis of my being an authorized Vaishnava minister based on the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita." Rather than wait indefinitely for permanent residency, Prabhupada decided to apply for a visitor's visa. He went with Achyutananda to the U.S. consulate on Harrington Road. There, in the middle of Calcutta, they entered a small piece of America with everything shiny, new, and efficient. Air conditioners, stainless steel water coolers, electric security doors, U.S. Marines, and American flags. Sitting before the secretary of the consulate, Prabhupada looked small and humble. "I want a visa to see my students in America," he said softly. "Do you have any letters?" the secretary asked. Achyutananda handed over the letters from the temples. The secretary reviewed them and quickly gave Prabhupada a 4-month visa. Let's turn over. While leaving the building, Prabhupada remarked, "I will just get anything, and then it can be extended." On October 19th, Prabhupada wrote Hayagriva regarding his imminent return, "I am already preparing for returning to USA, and I have obtained a visitor's visa the day before yesterday. More probably, I shall take the first chance to return to USA upon my return from Navadvip." And on October 22nd, he wrote to Umapati. I had the fortune of meeting Umapati Swami in Poland. And he was one of Prabhupada's first disciples, and he's a friend of my spiritual master. So I had the good fortune of meeting him. "You will be glad to know that I have already secured a visa to your country, and I have asked my travel agent to book my seat on the earliest possible date. I think I shall be in your midst by the middle of November." On October 24th, Prabhupada traveled with Achyutananda and Ramanuja to Navadvip. Although the local train took 4 hours, the lush Bengal countryside gradually revealed its heavenly beauty, and Prabhupada's health seemed to improve just from the pleasant journey. By the time they arrived at Navadvip, Achyutananda and Ramanuja were also feeling relief from the rigors of Calcutta. For the first time in weeks, they could open their eyes without blinking through drops of perspiration. Now, I'm not sure if the Ramanujas, I guess it's this our Ramanuja, right? Ramanujacharya Prabhu. No? It's not? Okay. All right. A large kirtan party of brahmacharis, mostly members of Keshava Maharaj, Dayananda Gaudiya Math, met Srila Prabhupada at the Navadvip train station. The brahmacharis were miraculously neat, with their robes all dyed and the same shade of saffron. Their Vaishnava tilak markings hold a distinct, bold and distinct, their heads smoothly shaved, their sikas precise. They offered Prabhupada, it says Prabhupada, but I like to say Srila Prabhupada. They offered Srila Prabhupada and his party aromatic garlands made from flowers resembling lotuses, and gathered around Srila Prabhupada with worshipful enthusiasm. Although present were a few Sridhar Swami's disciples waiting with rickshaws to take Srila Prabhupada and his disciples to their guru's ashram. Although between the two groups there was an unspoken competition for Prabhupada's presence, he had previously agreed to go to Sridhar Maharaj's place. He promised the members of the Devananda Math that he would visit them next. Sorry, what's the time? How much time do I have? Yes, I have like 10 minutes. So, soon after leaving the station, the rickshaws turned onto the road, a road lined with lush tropical vegetation, banana trees, tall bamboos, exotic blossoming flowers. Prabhupada saw simple villagers working near their straw and mud huts, and in a distance, the spire of Sridhar Maharaj's temple. A kirtan party greeted Prabhupada in the outer gates of Sridhar Maharaj's ashram. Chanting Hare Krishna, they played kartals and clay mirdangas. Prabhupada entered the temple, offered obeisances and the deities of Radha and Krishna, before the deities of Radha and Krishna, and then went to see his godbrother. You know, I remember going to Mayapur for the first time. And I went to Navadvip, actually. When I went to Navadvip, it was like I came home. There was something about Navadvip that, you know, I felt like homesick. You know, like I like just came home. I'm here now. You know, it was such a like nostalgic feeling. So, where was I? Yeah. Sridhar Maharaj was very old, his sight failing, his joints stiff with arthritis. He stayed mostly in his room and sometimes on his veranda and moved only with slow, rickety motions. He was an austere and kindly Vaishnava and smiled heartily on seeing Prabhupada and his disciples. In fluent English, he began praising Prabhupada's preaching in America, repeatedly using Prabhupada's phrase, Krishna consciousness. Swamiji's work, he said, was the fulfillment of Lord Chaitanya's prophecy that Krishna consciousness would one day spread all over the world. He laughed and smiled and praised the Krishna consciousness movement with no trace of jealousy. So you appreciate this phrase, Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada smiled. Yes, Sridhar Maharaj replied, and the disciples of Swami Maharaj also. And he turned towards Achyutananda and Ramanuja. With very little effort, your preaching will go far. The boys were astonished. This was really something to write home about, sitting on the roof of a temple in this jungle paradise with old Sridhar Maharaj appreciating Swamiji's work as the greatest work on behalf of Lord Chaitanya, and Swamiji sitting relaxed, grinning and making humble replies. It was the high point of the trip. So now here's a letter to Satsvarup Das Goswami. My dear Satsvarup, please accept my blessings. I have already duly received the invitation from the Harvard University. It is understood that they are scheduling me for November 20th between 6 and 10 p.m. I can start immediately on the strength of my visitor's visa, but I am awaiting for Mukunda's reply for his trying to my permanent visa. Yesterday, we have all come to Navadvip. This place is another establishment of one of my god brothers. It is very nice and extensive place, and my god brother Bihar Sridhar Maharaj had spared one entire nice house for us to stay. He has also agreed to cooperate with our society. We shall observe his birthday ceremony tomorrow, and the brahmacharis shall learn how to celebrate the spiritual master's birthday. Right, so this they are learning for the first time. Vyasa Puja Day, the observance of Bihar Sridhar Maharaj's birthday was October 27th. His disciples had erected a pandal on the temple road, and about 100 people attended. Sridhar Maharaj sat on his Vyasasan, and Prabhupada and other sannyasis, all wearing flower garlands, sat in chairs next to Sridhar Maharaj. Prabhupada spoke in Bengali. Some of Sridhar Maharaj's disciples, inspired by Prabhupada's preaching about the glories of spreading Krishna consciousness in the West, delivered speeches in English and Vyasa Puja homages to their spiritual master. Sridhar Swami also speaking in English, gave a very scientific lecture on Krishna consciousness and the senses. Afterwards, Prabhupada told his disciples, he has very high realizations, but he is keeping them to himself. Every morning before dawn, Sridhar Maharaj sent out a party of brahmacharis to perform kirtan in the villages. On Prabhupada's request, Achyutananda and Ramanuja joined them, leaving before sunrise and returning at dusk. Although Prabhupada and Sridhar Maharaj usually remained at the temple, one day they got into a rickshaw and accompanied the chanting party through the streets of Navadvip. I think I'll stop here now. And if anyone would like to contribute or say something, you're most welcome to do that. And Prabhupada lilamrta. Yes, Prabhu.
There's something really nice that I noted when Prabhupada was speaking to Sridhar Maharaj the first time on the rooftop, and it's mentioned that he had like no trace of jealousy. Oftentimes, especially, I mean, from what I've heard in many past times, we kind of see...
Put your mask on, I cannot hear you.
Oh, sorry. We kind of see Prabhupada's god brothers as all like one group of these envious kind of people, but actually a lot of them are really good. They have so many qualities from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, and we can see that this really cozy and wonderful interaction that Prabhupada had with Sridhar Maharaj. We had no trace of jealousy, but just appreciation. Really nice scene to meditate on.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for that. Not all Prabhupada's god brothers were envious of him, just a few. And most of them appreciated Srila Prabhupada, actually. Yeah. Yes, Prabhupada?
Hare Krishna.
Rebo.
Just one comment. Srila Prabhupada, a good point that you mainly spoke in English in India, but he did speak in Hindi. And when he was speaking in Hindi, once the disciples got up and they started leaving. And Prabhupada called them and said, no, you should sit and listen. Although it was,
yes,
you know, they couldn't understand. So we can learn from that the sound, you know, of the spiritual master is important, even if they can't understand it. Thank you.
Yes, one incident that my Guru Maharaj tells when he was in Hyderabad with Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was speaking in Hindi and he fell off to sleep. And Prabhupada shouted and said, "Why are you sleeping?" And Srila Gurudev, woke up and he said, "Prabhupada, I cannot understand." He says, "Never mind, you should still hear, because actually the soul is hearing, so you should still hear, be awake." And Gurudev says, "I haven't slept again in another class of Srila Prabhupada or any other class." Right? So yes, hearing is very important, and one should stay awake in class. Anything else? Ravindra Swarup Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. What I need to know is Prabhupada's sister, Pishima, is she still living or she
No,
passed on?
she actually left. She left this planet, like not very long ago. She was here for a while, and then after Prabhupada left. Yeah. Was it his? Wait, I can't really remember now, right now, but I think she left after Prabhupada. I'm not sure. I must look into that. Actually. Oh no, she left before Srila Prabhupada. I think, yeah, she left before Srila Prabhupada. And when Prabhupada received the news that his sister had left, he was smiling and he was laughing, and then the devotees, because he received the news, I think via a letter, and and he was laughing, and the devotees asked him, "Prabhupada, why are you laughing?" And Prabhupada said, "Yes, because my sister, she went back home, back to Godhead. She's a Vaishnava, and she's gone back home, back to Godhead." So yeah, I remember that. Yes. Okay. Hope that answers your question. Arjunacharya Das. Mataji, is anyone? Radhika Prashan? Okay, we'll stop here now. Srila Prabhupada Leela Amrita Ki Jai. Go Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.